Have you ever noticed how the quiet beauty of a garden can soften even the busiest of days? The way sunlight filters through leaves, the way stones rest as if placed by time itself, the way driftwood tells stories of rivers and tides. It is in these simple details that we find peace. At TERAFLORA Studio, we believe that every corner of a garden can hold a touch of magic, whether grand or humble. And today we invite you to walk with us through ideas that bring rustic charm to life. This journey is not about perfection, nor about rules carved in stone. It is about observation, imagination, and gentle hands shaping nature's gifts into something meaningful. Perhaps you will see a pile of pebbles not as gravel, but as a pathway of spirals. Perhaps a piece of driftwood will reveal itself as a bridge, an arch, or even a cradle for new life. Inspiration is everywhere if we allow ourselves to look closer, slower, and with a little wonder. Before we begin, it is important to share with clarity. This content has been thoughtfully arranged with the help of AI. It is a creative companion that helps us weave ideas into words. Yet every suggestion here is meant for you to shape with your own vision, your own hands, and your own heart. And so, as we step forward into this world of rustic design and natural artistry, I warmly invite you to join our growing circle. If you find comfort in these stories and inspiration in these ideas, please consider subscribing to TERAFLORA Studio. Your presence, your voice, and your curiosity give life to this channel, just as light gives life to the garden. There is something magical about the sound of stones singing in the wind. Imagine walking into your backyard and hearing a melody not played by instruments, but by nature itself, driftwood and pebbles gently knocking together with every passing breeze. This is the beauty of a coastal driftwood stone windshield, a project that doesn't just decorate your space, but transforms it into a place of calm. To create one, begin by finding a piece of driftwood that feels weathered and strong, something shaped by time and water. Its surface will already carry a story, each grain and not a reminder of where it has been. Then gather smooth river pebbles, selecting a mix of sizes so each note carries a slightly different tone. Drill tiny holes through the stones with care, under a small pool of water if possible, to protect both the drill bit and the stone itself. Once ready, thread each pebble on clear fishing line or strong jute, varying the lengths so they sway at different heights. Tie them securely to the driftwood bar, making sure each stone has enough space to touch lightly against the others. Now find a spot where the wind can reach freely, under a pergola, on the porch beam, or from a tree branch. As the first breeze stirs, you'll hear the notes. A soft clink here, a deeper tone there. It's not loud, never demanding attention, but always reminding you that nature has its own rhythm. Over weeks and months, the driftwood will weather further, turning silvery gray, while the pebbles slowly polish with every tap. What begins as a handmade craft matures into a rustic instrument, one that keeps evolving with time. The beauty of this project lies not just in the sound, but in the way it blends with life around it. Birds may perch on the driftwood. Flowers beneath may sway in time with the chime. Even neighbors passing by might pause to listen. It becomes part of the garden's soul, a gentle presence that calms the mind after a long day. And here's the tip. Keep the lengths uneven, because irregular spacing makes the melody more natural, more like waves meeting stones along a shore. This is the secret of its charm, imperfect, but deeply human. With nothing more than driftwood, stones, and string, you've crafted music that will never play the same way twice, yet always feel familiar. When the sun begins to set, a garden reveals another side of its beauty. Shadows lengthen, colors soften, and with just a touch of light, the ordinary becomes magical. That is the promise of rustic pebble mesh lanterns. Lanterns not purchased from a store, but shaped by your own hands, with the humblest of materials. Imagine taking simple wire mesh, the kind you might find rolled up in a workshop, and coaxing it into a cylinder. The frame itself is not perfect, but that is the charm. Once formed, you begin to fill it with smooth river pebbles, one by one, sliding them into place as though you were stacking memories. Their shapes are irregular, their colors earthy, grays, browns, soft whites. The lantern begins to take on weight, not just in form but in presence. Now, tuck a small solar puck or LED candle into the center. The first time you switch it on, light seeps through the gaps between stones like embers glowing in a hearth. Place one lantern beneath a pergola, another by a garden path, and suddenly your backyard no longer feels like a space outside. It feels like a retreat, alive with warmth and intimacy. What makes these lanterns special is how they change with time of day. In the morning, they stand as sculptures, the pebbles catching dew and sunlight. By evening, they transform into glowing beacons, their light dancing across the ground. Each lantern becomes a story in itself. Stones gathered from a river walk, driftwood used as a handle, a quiet evening when you set them in place. The practical side is just as rewarding. Unlike fragile glass lanterns, these are sturdy, grounded in stone. They are safe in the wind, weather-resistant, and endlessly adaptable. You can make them tall or short, fill them with pebbles of one tone for calmness, or with mixed colors for playfulness. A tip worth remembering: leave spaces between the stones. Do not pack them too tightly. It is the gaps that make the lantern breathe, letting light weave its way through like threads of fire. And if you want to add a rustic detail, lash a piece of driftwood across the top as a handle, something organic to balance the crisp lines of the mesh. As the night deepens, you sit back and watch the glow. These lanterns do more than illuminate. They remind you that even in darkness, beauty can be found in the simplest, most natural things. Paths are not just for moving from one place to another. In a garden, a path is an invitation, an open hand leading you toward discovery. And when each step is its own work of art, walking becomes more than movement. It becomes an experience. That is the charm of spiral pebble path pavers, where the ground beneath your feet carries beauty as well as function. The process begins simply. Take shallow molds or trays and pour in a smooth mix of cement. While the surface is still soft, press in flat river pebbles, arranging them in gentle spirals. Some spirals tighten at the center like a seashell, others stretch outward like ripples on water. Each stone sits slightly recessed, ensuring that the paver is safe and steady underfoot. Then comes patience. Mist the surface occasionally, letting the cement cure slowly and evenly until it is strong enough to lift. Now imagine laying these pavers in your garden. Not in a straight, predictable line, but curving gently toward a quiet corner. Perhaps the path leads to a rustic wooden bench shaded by an old tree, or maybe it winds toward a little nook where herbs grow. Space the stones naturally, as if they've always been there, each stride feeling effortless and comfortable. Over time, moss or creeping thyme can grow between them, softening the edges with living green. What you've created is more than a walkway. It is a series of moments. Each spiral underfoot catches the eye, pulling you into its rhythm. Children might trace the patterns with their toes. Guests might pause mid-step, surprised to find the path itself worth admiring. Even on a quiet morning, you may find yourself strolling slowly, savoring the designs that mirror nature's own geometry. Practicality hides in the artistry too. Cement ensures durability. The recessed pebbles provide grip, preventing slips even after a rain. And because each stone is handmade, no two are ever exactly alike. The imperfections become part of the character, just as in nature. Here's a tip. Use a mix of pebble colors: dark gray, soft cream, warm beige. The contrast makes the spirals glow in sunlight, turning each paver into a small mosaic. And don't rush the layout. Let the path meander, because the most memorable journeys are never in straight lines. In the end, spiral pebble pavers give your garden not only direction, but also delight. Each step becomes an artwork beneath your feet, guiding you into your own secret sanctuary. Every garden needs a moment of life, a place where stillness meets movement. A driftwood pedestal birdbath is more than decoration. It is an invitation for nature to visit. One morning you might see a sparrow dipping its wings. Another evening a butterfly resting on the rim. With just a few simple steps, your garden becomes a sanctuary, alive with water, color, and song. The process begins with choosing the right pedestal. Driftwood, with its curves and weathered grain, feels as if it has already lived many lives. Standing upright, it becomes a sculpture, strong yet natural. Level the top carefully and set a shallow bowl across it. Stone, ceramic, or even a metal dish. Adjust with flat pebbles as shims if needed, ensuring it balances securely. Then fill it with fresh water, watching the surface mirror the sky. Here is where imagination steps in. Scatter smooth painted pebbles across the bottom, their colors shimmering beneath the water. They might be soft blues that recall river stones, or bright reds and yellows that catch the eye of both birds and people alike. Add a small ramp of pebbles leading into the bowl so tiny creatures can enter safely. In doing so, you create not just beauty, but hospitality. Place the birdbath in a thoughtful spot, where morning sun can warm the water but afternoon shade keeps it cool. Nestle it near shrubs or low branches, offering cover for birds that arrive cautiously. Within days, the first guests will come. A finch may sip delicately, a pigeon may splash in playful circles, or a butterfly may hover at the edge. Soon, the quiet corner becomes a stage for simple wonders. The beauty of this project lies in its balance. The driftwood stands tall, grounding the piece in rustic strength. The bowl brings reflection, a stillness that catches both light and life. The painted pebbles add surprise, transforming utility into art. And the water itself moves constantly, rippling with each wing beat, changing with each passing breeze. Tip: refresh the water often. Birds are more likely to return when the basin is clean and cool. Over time, moss may settle on the driftwood, deepening its character. What began as a project becomes part of the landscape, evolving with each season. In the end, this birdbath is not just for the birds. It is for you too, the moment you pause to listen, to watch, and to feel the garden breathe. There is something deeply satisfying about walking into your garden and snipping fresh herbs for dinner. The fragrance of rosemary, the sweetness of basil, the grounding scent of thyme. It feels like having a living pantry just steps away. A stone herb spiral raised bed is not only practical, but also sculptural, turning ordinary planting into a piece of garden art. The design begins with a simple outline. Using chalk, rope, or even a stick in the soil, draw a spiral that slowly tightens toward the center. Then, one by one, stack smooth river stones along this line, gradually building up the walls higher as the spiral curves inward. The base is low and wide, while the center rises like a small hill. As you work, backfill with rich soil, packing it firmly so that each level is stable and ready for planting. The beauty of the spiral lies in the microclimates it creates. At the top, where sunlight is strongest and the soil drains quickly, plant herbs that love dryness: rosemary, thyme, oregano. As you move down, the soil retains more moisture, making it perfect for basil, parsley, or mint. Each twist of the spiral offers conditions for a different herb, all within one continuous bed. Stand back when it's complete, and the shape itself is striking. From above, it looks like a living spiral mandala. From the side, it becomes a rustic wall that curves gracefully through the garden. Visitors are drawn to walk around it, tracing the path of plants with their eyes and fingers. It is both functional and artistic, practical and poetic. The daily rewards are even greater. Imagine stepping outside to cut sprigs of thyme for roasted vegetables, or plucking basil for a fresh salad. The spiral keeps everything organized and close at hand. And because it is raised, tending the plants is easier on your back and knees. Over time, the stones weather, herbs cascade down the edges, and the spiral softens into the landscape as if it has always belonged there. Tip: mulch the soil surface with small pebbles. This helps retain moisture, keeps weeds away, and makes the spiral look finished. You can even paint names on flat stones and tuck them as markers beside each herb. A stone herb spiral is not just a garden feature. It's a rhythm of life, a circle of fragrance and flavor that greets you each season. In its curves, you'll find both beauty and abundance. Sometimes the smallest details can completely transform a space. A simple clay pot, plain and unassuming, becomes extraordinary when dressed in stone. Pebble mosaic planter pots are more than containers for flowers. They are jewelry for your garden, rustic ornaments that catch the eye and celebrate the art of handcrafting. The process is wonderfully tactile. Begin with an ordinary terracotta pot, its surface warm and porous. Spread a thin layer of outdoor mortar or strong adhesive along a section of the pot. While it is still tacky, press smooth river pebbles into place, one by one, as if you were setting gemstones. The stones can follow a pattern, chevrons, stripes, spirals, or they can be random, a natural scattering of shapes and colors. Work slowly around the pot, completing small sections so nothing dries before you're ready. When the entire pot is covered, allow it to cure. If you wish, lightly grout between the pebbles to strengthen the hold, wiping the surface clean so each stone shines through. A final coat of sealer deepens the colors, making them gleam like wet river rocks after rain. The transformation is striking. Where there was once plain clay, now stands a textured mosaic, earthy yet elegant. But the magic truly arrives when you add plants. Imagine bright geraniums spilling red over a pot striped in gray and cream stones, or daisies blooming against a backdrop of pebble waves. The contrast between the rugged texture of the pot and the softness of petals makes each arrangement feel alive with personality. Grouped together, pebble pots create a chorus of rustic charm. Place 3 of varying heights on a patio ledge. Set a single one on garden steps, where sunlight can trace its patterns. Even indoors, by a sunny window, they bring nature's touch to your everyday view. Here's a tip. Mix pebbles of slightly different sizes. Too uniform and the pattern feels stiff. With variation, the surface becomes organic, like a riverbed captured in stone. Over time, weather will soften the edges. Moss may nestle between the pebbles, and each pot will age gracefully, becoming part of the garden story. In the end, pebble mosaic planter pots are proof that beauty doesn't always come from new things. Sometimes it is about giving the humble a chance to shine. With just clay, stone, and patience, you've turned something ordinary into a vessel of lasting charm. Rain is often something we overlook, rushing indoors while droplets fall. Yet, with a little creativity, rain can be transformed into art. A flat stone rain chain is not just functional. It turns every shower into a performance, a ribbon of water dancing down through stone. It makes stormy days something to look forward to. The process begins with gathering flat, smooth stones, each one shaped by rivers or time. Using a diamond bit drill underwater to protect the stone, small holes are carefully made near the edges. It takes patience, but each stone becomes a link in the story. With galvanized wire or sturdy split rings, connect them one after another, leaving space between so that water has room to fall. Soon you have a chain, heavy and natural, ready to catch the sky's gift. Mount the top with a rustic bracket. Driftwood works beautifully. At the edge of a pergola, gutter, or porch roof. As rain begins, drops collect, slide, and drip from stone to stone. The rhythm is never the same twice. Sometimes a trickle, sometimes a stream, always soothing. At the base, prepare a shallow basin or clay pot filled with pebbles. It catches the runoff, turning splashes into ripples that shimmer and fade. Even when the skies are clear, the chain remains a sculpture. Stones dangle in quiet suspension, their textures catching sunlight, their lines casting gentle shadows. It feels like a piece of natural jewelry hanging in the garden. But when rain comes, it awakens. The stones become alive with movement, water flowing as though the earth itself were singing. The practical side is just as rewarding. Instead of a plain downspout which hides water away, you now have a feature that guides it gently, reducing erosion and feeding nearby plants. The basin at the bottom can be designed to overflow into flower beds, offering nourishment each time it rains. Here's a tip: choose stones of varying sizes. Smaller stones create quick, delicate drops, while larger ones form slower streams. The contrast makes the chain feel more alive, more like a mountain spring cascading over rocks. Over time, rain will polish the stones, driftwood will weather into silver gray, and the feature will feel like it has always belonged to the garden. The sound, the movement, the presence. It all reminds you that beauty doesn't have to be made new. Sometimes it is revealed one raindrop at a time. Every garden has places where water naturally wants to move. Low spots where rain gathers, corners that feel quiet and forgotten. With a little imagination, these spaces can be transformed into something enchanting. A dry creek bed, winding gracefully, crossed by a driftwood bridge. Even without water, it tells the story of a stream, inviting the eye and calming the heart. The first step is to trace the path. Let it meander, curving naturally, as if shaped by time. Dig a shallow trough just a few inches deep, then lay landscape fabric to prevent weeds from creeping through. Layer larger rocks along the edges, building banks that feel solid, while filling the center with smooth pebbles and river stones. Vary the sizes so it looks natural. Streams are never uniform, and the irregularity is what makes them convincing. For the bridge, choose a sturdy piece of driftwood, weathered but strong. Place it across the creek as a simple foot crossing, the kind that feels almost accidental, as though discovered in the forest. Its grain and curves will contrast beautifully against the clean lines of stone, turning utility into poetry. Planting completes the illusion. Tuck drought-tolerant grasses and creeping thyme along the banks, letting their blades arch gently over the stones like reeds beside a river. In spring, small flowers can dot the edges, softening the rocks with bursts of color. After a rainfall, water may briefly trace the path, shimmering between the pebbles, before vanishing again. Even dry, the creek retains its quiet presence, a reminder of movement and flow. Practicality blends with beauty here. The bed can help channel excess rainwater, protecting other parts of the garden from erosion. The stones keep soil in place, while the design draws the eye toward areas you wish to highlight. It is not just decor, it is landscape working with nature. Here's a tip: scatter a few larger boulders or driftwood logs at curves. They anchor the design, giving the creek the weight of authenticity. Nature rarely arranges things perfectly, so let it feel slightly wild. Over time, moss may grow on the stones, deepening the sense that this creek has always been here. At dusk, standing on the driftwood bridge, you might feel transported. There is no water rushing beneath your feet, yet the story is complete. The dry creek bed whispers of rivers long gone, and in that illusion, your garden becomes both sanctuary and stage. In every garden, there are plants that dream of climbing higher, beans searching for sunlight, peas stretching for air, flowers eager to display themselves. A trellis is their stage, and when made from driftwood, it becomes more than a frame. It is sculpture, story, and support all at once. The process begins with the wood itself. Driftwood poles, weathered by sun and water, already carry a rugged elegance. Gather pieces of similar thickness and length, enough to form 2 upright supports and several crossbars. Arrange them like a ladder, each crosspiece spaced wide enough for air to flow, yet close enough for tendrils to find a hold. Secure every joint with natural rope or strong garden wire, wrapping firmly so the structure feels steady. For extra stability, sink the bottoms into buried buckets filled with gravel and soil, or wedge them directly into the earth with stones packed tight around their base. Once upright, the trellis stands not as something bought from a store, but as a handmade creation, imperfect, organic, and beautiful. Now the planting begins. At the base, tuck beans, peas, grapes, or even climbing roses into the soil. The first shoots will reach cautiously, needing guidance. Gently thread their tendrils through the lower rungs, and nature will do the rest. As weeks pass, the trellis fills. Leaves spread wide, flowers bloom, pods and fruit hang in clusters. What was once bare wood becomes a living wall, alive with green and harvest. The beauty is not only in summer abundance. In winter, when vines retreat, the trellis remains sculptural, its weathered poles standing like a natural monument. Against snow or frost, it feels like a sketch drawn by nature's hand. Quiet, elegant, enduring. Here's a tip. Vary the angle of the crossbars. A slight fan shape catches more light, giving plants space to spread. You can even build two trellises and lean them together in an A-frame, creating a shaded tunnel to walk through. Children love running under it, while gardeners enjoy harvesting beans that dangle at arm's reach. Over time, the driftwood silvers in the weather, rope tightens into place, and vines continue their yearly performance. The trellis does not just hold plants. It holds seasons, memories, and meals shared with loved ones. Every harvest is a reminder. From something humble and handmade, beauty and abundance grow skyward. Every garden has edges, the lines where paths meet soil, where order meets wildness. Too often, these borders are forgotten, left bare or untidy. Yet with driftwood and pebbles, even the edges can become art. A frame that not only defines but enhances the beauty within. The project begins with driftwood stakes. Choose branches or weathered pieces that are straight enough to stand tall, each one trimmed to a similar height. Sharpen the ends so they can be driven into the soil. One by one, hammer them along the border of a flower bed, keeping the spacing steady, like notes in a melody. The stakes rise like natural posts, rustic and irregular, their grain telling stories of sun, salt, and time. Between the stakes and the soil, pour a ribbon of smooth pebbles. Rake them flat until they form a clean strip, glistening like a riverbank. The stones can be pale and uniform for a modern look, or mixed in shades of gray and brown for something wilder. Together, wood and stone complement each other. One vertical, one horizontal, one aged, one timeless. Step back, and the transformation is instant. The garden no longer bleeds into the path. It is framed, intentional, and graceful. Flowers now rise from behind a rustic stage, their colors vivid against the pale stones. Even without blossoms, the border itself feels complete, proof that detail makes the whole. Practicality runs beneath the beauty. The edging keeps mulch and soil in place, preventing them from spilling into the walkway. It makes mowing and trimming easier, guiding tools with a clear line. And because it is made of natural materials, it weathers into the garden, aging softly rather than standing out harshly. Tip: over time, let moss creep onto the driftwood, or scatter a few thyme plants among the pebbles. These living touches soften the border, making it feel less like a boundary and more like part of the landscape. Replace stones or stakes as needed, but remember that imperfection is part of its charm. This edging is not just about separation, it is about framing life. Like the frame of a painting, it does not compete with the art but highlights it. With driftwood and pebbles, you give your garden definition, rhythm, and a quiet sense of care. Even the edges, humble as they are, can hold beauty. Not every garden feature must serve a function. Some are created purely for wonder, for the joy of seeing something unexpected in a familiar space. A Gabion stone sphere on a driftwood tripod is exactly that. Sculpture born from the simplest of materials, a piece of art you can make with your own hands. The process begins with a sphere. Using wire mesh, shape a hollow globe, or repurpose a plant cage if you prefer an easier start. The form doesn't need to be perfect. Its character lies in its imperfections. Then, one by one, fill the globe with smooth river stones. Each stone presses against the others until the shape becomes dense, solid, yet still translucent, with small gaps that let light and shadow play across its surface. Next comes the tripod. Choose 3 sturdy driftwood forks, each weathered and strong. Trim their ends so they meet neatly, then lash or screw them together at the top. When standing, the tripod forms a natural cradle, rustic yet elegant. Gently lower the stone sphere into this frame, letting it settle until it feels steady. Placed in a garden bed, the sculpture is arresting. At midday, sunlight bounces across the polished stones, highlighting their subtle colors: gray, cream, and brown. At dusk, golden light slips between the gaps, turning the orb into a glowing lantern of stone. And even in rain, the wet surfaces shimmer, reflecting the sky like liquid glass. The beauty of this design lies in its permanence and its story. Stones, shaped by centuries of water and time, held within a man-made sphere. Driftwood, once tossed by tides, now standing tall as a support. Together, they tell of earth and water, of nature shaped but never controlled. For added drama, create not just one, but 3 spheres, each of a different size. Arrange them as a grouping, like a family of sculptures, anchoring a corner of the garden. They require no watering, no trimming, no care. Yet they change constantly depending on light, season, and weather. Here's a tip. Position the tripod where it catches the low sun of evening. At that hour, the orb glows as if lit from within, becoming the heart of the garden. This project proves something powerful. Art doesn't always belong in galleries. Sometimes, it belongs outdoors, nestled between flowers, where earth, stone, and would speak quietly to anyone willing to pause and look. Evenings in the garden have a special kind of magic. The air softens, the sky shifts to gold, and light becomes something we crave. Not harsh, but gentle, warm, and welcoming. Pebble mason jar luminaries capture this feeling perfectly. They are simple to make, yet they bring an atmosphere that feels timeless, like fireflies captured in glass. Begin with mason jars, ordinary, sturdy, and familiar. At the base of each, pour a layer of smooth river pebbles. These stones do more than stabilize. They scatter light in unexpected ways, breaking it into patterns of sparkle and shadow. Next, choose your source of glow. A solar lid makes the jars practical, charging by day and glowing by night. A tea light or candle brings a flicker, a heartbeat of flame. Either choice works, depending on the mood you wish to create. For a rustic touch, wrap the neck of each jar with jute twine. You might even tie on a small piece of driftwood as a charm, a detail that whispers of the sea. Arrange the jars along the edge of a patio, guiding footsteps like a glowing trail. Scatter them on garden steps, where each light feels like a star fallen to earth. Or cluster them on an outdoor table, transforming an evening meal into a quiet celebration. The effect is subtle yet powerful. As dusk deepens, the jars begin to glow. The light is softened by the stones, refracted like water over pebbles in a stream. A path becomes enchanted, a table becomes intimate, a corner becomes alive. Guests pause to notice, and even when you are alone, the garden feels warmer, more alive. There is practicality here too. Solar jars require no wires, no fuss. Just place them where the sun can reach. Tea lights are inexpensive, easy to replace, and bring that dancing flame we so often miss in modern life. The jars themselves protect from wind, making the light steady and safe. Tip: vary the heights of your jars. Use tall and short, large and small. The uneven rhythm feels natural, like stones scattered by a river. And don't be afraid to mix clear jars with colored glass for playful variety. Over time, you may find yourself lighting them not just for guests, but for yourself. For quiet evenings when the world slows down and you want to feel surrounded by gentle beauty. In those moments, the Pebble Mason jar luminaries remind you that magic doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes it is as simple as glass, stone, and light. Gardens are full of surprises, hidden corners, small discoveries, places where imagination takes root. Few projects capture the spirit better than a twig fairy cottage with a pebble chimney. It is not built for utility but for wonder, a reminder that even the smallest things can spark joy. The building materials are humble. Gather twigs, bark, scraps of driftwood, and a handful of smooth pebbles. Arrange the twigs into walls, gluing or tying them together until they stand. Add a sloped roof made from overlapping bark or thin pieces of wood, giving the sense of shingles weathered by years. At one corner, stack pebbles into a tiny chimney, as if smoke might rise from it on cool evenings. Suddenly, a handful of scraps has become a home. The placement is as important as the construction. Set the cottage into a shady garden nook, beneath a shrub or along the edge of a flower bed. Press moss around its base, softening the lines so it looks like it has always been there. Lay a path of flat stones leading to the door. Add small details. A painted pebble as a mailbox, acorn caps as roof tiles, or a miniature bench from driftwood twigs. These touches turn a simple model into a story waiting to be found. The joy comes not only from making, but from discovery. Children delight in stumbling upon the cottage, imagining fairies who live unseen. Adults, too, pause to smile, caught off guard by something playful in the quiet of the garden. It becomes a secret shared between you and the space itself. Over time, the cottage weathers. Moss grows thicker, bark softens, pebbles darken with rain. Far from diminishing it, this aging deepens the illusion. The house feels lived in, as though tiny residents have truly called it home for years. Here's a tip: build more than one. Scatter them in unexpected corners, behind a rose bush, beside a tree root, near the vegetable patch. Each discovery feels like a new chapter in the story, turning your garden into a landscape of imagination. A twig fairy cottage may not grow food or provide light, but it feeds something just as essential: wonder. It reminds us to look closer, to notice the small and the hidden. In that moment of discovery, your garden becomes more than a place of plants. It becomes a world of stories, waiting quietly beneath the leaves. Some gardens invite you to wander. Others invite you to sit. A driftwood and pebble succulent centerpiece belongs to the latter. A piece of living art meant not for the far corner of the yard, but for the table where you share tea, laughter, and quiet afternoons. It is a garden in miniature, compact yet full of life. The base is simple: a shallow bowl or dish, preferably stone or ceramic for stability. Into this vessel goes a gritty cactus mix, soil designed to drain quickly and mimic desert sands. Then comes the arranging, which is as much about storytelling as it is about planting. Lay driftwood across the surface, its bleached curves recalling shorelines and forest floors. Between the gaps, tuck succulents. A rosette of echeveria here, a string of pearls spilling gently there, a haworthia standing tall like a sculptural accent. The final layer is pebbles. Sprinkle them in bands as though they were shorelines, curving across the soil. Polished stones catch the light, while sandy patches left bare create contrast. Together, wood, stone, and plant weave a composition that feels both rustic and refined. It is a small landscape, a fragment of nature arranged with intention. Placed on a patio table, the centerpiece changes with the light. In the morning, dew sparkles on the pebbles. At noon, succulents glow vivid green against the pale driftwood. By evening, long shadows turn the bowl into a tiny desert at sunset. Each glance reveals something new. The beauty of succulents lies in their patience. They ask for little sunlight, an occasional sip of water, and room to grow. In return, they stay vibrant, their forms sculptural and enduring. Over weeks and months, they settle into the arrangement, roots holding firm, leaves layering upon each other like petals carved in stone. Tip: resist the urge to crowd too many plants. Give each succulent space to breathe, so its form can be admired. A few well-chosen varieties create harmony, while driftwood and pebbles fill the silence between. This centerpiece is more than decoration. It is a reminder that gardens are not always vast. Sometimes they fit on a tabletop, holding the beauty of desert, forest, and riverbed in a single bowl. With driftwood, pebbles, and succulents, you hold a world in miniature, alive, evolving, and endlessly calming. Dining outdoors is about more than food. It is about atmosphere. The way light falls across the table, the scents carried by evening air, the centerpiece that makes a simple meal feel like a celebration. A Pebble River tablescape with air plants is a project that turns any table into a landscape, flowing with the quiet beauty of stone, wood, and green life. Begin with a bare surface, long or round, it doesn't matter. Down the center, lay a trail of smooth pebbles, letting them meander like a river. Do not force the line to be straight. Let it curve gently, widening and narrowing as though carved by water. Between the stones, tuck in small tillandsia air plants. They require no soil, only light and occasional misting, which makes them perfect companions for such a design. Their sculptural leaves rise and curl like river reeds, bringing movement to the arrangement. Next, place pieces of driftwood along the banks. Their textures and shapes frame the river, hinting at fallen logs resting by water's edge. The contrast between polished pebbles and weathered wood deepens the illusion, making the centerpiece feel alive, almost natural rather than designed. As a finishing touch, scatter tea lights or solar votives among the stones. When evening falls, the glow reflects on the pebbles, turning them into glistening river rocks. The table becomes not just a place to eat, but a place to linger, to talk, to feel surrounded by beauty. The simplicity of this design is its strength. There is no soil to spill, no heavy pots to move. When the meal is over, the river can be lifted and rearranged, always changing, always fresh. The air plants themselves are easy to care for. Soak them briefly once a week or mist them lightly, then let them dry in bright air. In return, they remain vibrant, their forms elegant and surprising. Tip: choose pebbles of mixed sizes, with larger ones at the center of the flow and smaller ones tapering at the edges. It creates depth, a miniature illusion of a real riverbed. A few colored glass stones or crystals can be added sparingly for sparkle, though the natural look is often most calming. In the end, this tablescape is not just decoration, it is conversation. Guests lean in, fingers brushing stones, voices softening as the setting works its quiet charm. A Pebble River with air plants reminds us that beauty can be both simple and shared, flowing right through the center of everyday life. Every garden needs a sense of arrival, a moment when you step through and feel that you are entering a special place. Driftwood-crowned stone welcome towers offer exactly that. Sculptural, rustic, and inviting, they stand like guardians at the threshold, built not from expensive materials, but from the humblest gifts of nature. The making begins with strength. Hammer sturdy metal stakes into the soil where you want the towers to rise, usually one on each side of a path or gate. Slide smooth river stones down the stakes, starting with wide bases for stability, then layering smaller stones as you climb. Each stone is chosen carefully, balanced like notes in a song. Sometimes, a thin pebble acts as a shim, ensuring the stack holds firm. By the time you reach hip height, the silhouette is already impressive, natural yet deliberate, strong yet graceful. And then comes the crown, a piece of driftwood, twisted and sculpted by tide or time, rests atop the tower. Its unique form makes the statement, gnarled, knotted, or curved like a dancer in motion. No two crowns will ever be the same, and that is their beauty. They transform the towers from simple stacks into art, a blend of geology and story. By day, the towers stand as markers, welcoming you and guiding your eyes deeper into the garden. By night, their presence deepens. Add a warm uplight at the base, and the stones begin to glow softly while the driftwood casts long shadows, like figures keeping watch. Suddenly, your entry is not just functional but magical, a beacon that makes every step inside feel intentional. Practicality flows within the art. These towers cost little to make. Stones gathered from riverbeds, driftwood collected on a walk. Their sturdiness means they stand through seasons, weathering gracefully as moss settles and with silvers in the sun. And because they are modular, you can change them over time, Add stones, replace driftwood, let the towers evolve with your garden. Here's a tip: build towers in pairs. Symmetry creates a sense of ceremony, while their rustic texture keeps the mood natural and relaxed. Place them at transitions between lawn and flower bed, or at the entrance to a hidden nook. Each time you pass, you feel the shift, as though stepping into another world. In the end, driftwood-crowned stone towers are more than decoration. They are thresholds, markers of memory and meaning, reminding you that beauty often rises when the simplest materials are given a place of honor. Sometimes the best garden features are not the grand arches or flowing paths, but the small details you see every single day. A pebble-skinned kitchen herb planter is one of those projects, practical, beautiful, and full of daily rewards. It greets you with fragrance when you step outside, offers flavors for cooking, and adds rustic charm to even the smallest space. The process starts with the frame. Build a simple box from reclaimed wood or leftover pallet boards. Nothing fancy, just sturdy enough to hold soil. Line the inside with landscape fabric to keep the soil in place. Then comes the transformation. Spread a layer of strong adhesive on the outer sides and press smooth river pebbles into the surface. Each one settles like a puzzle piece, creating a mosaic that feels both rugged and refined. Whether you choose a single tone for calm simplicity or a mix of colors for playful variety, the skin of pebbles turns the humble box into rustic garden art. Fill the planter with quality potting soil and tuck in your favorite herbs: rosemary, thyme, basil, or parsley. As the plants grow, their scents spill over the edge, mingling with the cool texture of stone. Each time you brush against them, fragrance rises. The sharp clarity of rosemary, the sweet freshness of basil. Cooking becomes richer, not only because of flavor, but because you have gathered it with your own hands, steps away from your kitchen. For an extra touch, paint the names of each herb on small flat stones and place them as labels in the soil. It is a detail that makes the planter playful, almost like a miniature garden map. Over time, the herbs will spill outward, softening the lines of the box, while the pebbles weather gently, deepening their tones. Practicality and beauty meet here. Herbs thrive because the planter sits in a sunny, accessible spot, close enough to snip while cooking. The pebbled skin not only protects the wood, but also gives the box a finished look that elevates it far above a simple container. Tip: place the planter by your kitchen door or window where you will see it often. Gardens thrive when they are part of daily life, and this one rewards you every time you step outside. A pebble-skinned herb planter is proof that rustic design need not be distant or grand. Sometimes, it is right at your door, offering beauty and flavor in equal measure. There are few sights more enchanting than stepping through an arch draped with roses. It is a gesture of welcome, a passage into beauty, and when made with driftwood, it carries the rustic strength of nature itself. A driftwood rose archway is not just a structure. It is an invitation to enter a different world. The making begins with 2 forked branches of driftwood, tall and sturdy, their arms reaching like open hands. Set their bases deep in buried buckets of gravel and quick-setting concrete so they stand strong, ready to bear the weight of time and growth. Across their forks, lay a weathered driftwood beam, lashing it with rope until it feels secure. In its raw state, the frame already looks like sculpture, a piece of nature lifted from the shore and reimagined as architecture. Now comes the living part. Plant climbing roses at the base of each side. In the first weeks, guide their stems upward, threading them gently through the driftwood. Over time, the roses will take the frame as their own, weaving green foliage and bursts of bloom across every line of wood. What begins as bare branches becomes a doorway alive with color and fragrance. To mark the threshold, scatter a pebble base beneath the arch. It not only defines the entry but also crunches softly underfoot, grounding the experience with texture and sound. Passing through becomes more than movement, it becomes ritual, a small act of transition from one garden room to another. As seasons turn, the arch changes too. In spring, fresh leaves stretch eagerly toward the light, Summer bursts with blossoms, roses spilling over in cascades of pink, red, or white. Autumn brings hips that glow like jewels among fading leaves. Even in winter, the driftwood stands strong, sculptural against the bare sky. Tip: choose climbing roses suited to your climate, vigorous yet manageable. Train them with patience, pruning lightly to keep the arch balanced. With care, the structure will only grow more beautiful each year, until wood and plant are inseparable. A driftwood rose archway is more than a passage. It is a promise. Each time you walk through, you step into a story of resilience and romance, where wood and bloom, strength and softness, create a welcome that never fades. Water has a way of calming the soul. Its sound softens the edges of the day, its movement draws the eye, and its presence brings life into even the smallest corner. A hidden pump driftwood rill mini pond captures all of this in a simple, rustic design that feels as if it has always belonged to the garden. Begin by choosing a spot where you want stillness to meet motion. Perhaps beneath a tree, in a quiet corner, or beside a patio chair where you like to rest. Dig a shallow basin and line it with a waterproof container or pond liner. Inside, place a small submersible pump, the heart of the feature, and cover it with a sturdy grate so the mechanics disappear. Above the basin, position a hollow piece of driftwood. Weathered and sculptural, it becomes the spout, guiding water like a natural spring. Thread the pump tubing through the log so that water flows gently from its opening onto the waiting bed of pebbles below. Adjust the flow until it trickles softly, a steady whisper rather than a splash. The sound alone transforms the space. Gentle, calming, endlessly varied. Scatter smooth pebbles across the grate, hiding every sign of construction. The basin now looks like a natural pebble bed, with water seeping and shimmering across its surface. Around the edges, plant ferns, hostas, or flowering perennials to soften the lines. Add a flat stone near the lip of the basin to serve as a landing perch for birds, who will soon find the feature irresistible. At dusk, tuck a small waterproof light beneath the stones. The water begins to glow, shimmering like liquid silver in the gathering dark. The pond becomes not just a feature but a focal point, a lantern of sound and motion. Tip: keep the pump easy to access for cleaning. Fresh water ensures clarity and keeps the flow steady. Over time, moss may settle into the driftwood, making the piece feel even more natural, as though it has been part of the garden for years. This mini pond offers more than beauty. It masks noise, invites wildlife, and gives you a place to pause. Each time water falls from driftwood to stone, it reminds you that serenity does not require size or grandeur. It is found in the quiet persistence of flow. There is a certain joy in seeing plants not just grow, but float. Driftwood air plant cradles bring this delight into your garden or porch, a whimsical display where plants seem to hover in mid-air, cradled by nature's own sculptures. It is a project both playful and serene, reminding us that gardens can lift our eyes as well as our spirits. The foundation is simple: driftwood forks or small branches shaped by water and time. Their natural curves often form small cups or hollows, perfect for holding a base of smooth pebbles. Nestled into this base rests an air plant, a tillandsia, with its silver-green leaves spiraling outward like living sculpture. Unlike other plants, air plants require no soil, only light and air, making them perfect companions for this design. To hang the cradle, drill a small pilot hole at the top of the driftwood and thread through sturdy jute twine. Vary the length so that when hung from a pergola, tree branch, or porch beam, the cradles form a mobile, each piece swaying gently, catching the breeze like a natural wind chime. The movement is subtle, yet enough to make the arrangement feel alive. Care for these plants is simple. Once a week, mist them lightly or soak them in water for a few minutes, then let them dry. They thrive in bright, indirect light and reward you with lasting form and, occasionally, delicate blooms. The driftwood slowly weathers, the pebbles settle deeper, and the display evolves over time, becoming more beautiful with each season. The effect is both rustic and magical. Guests might pause to ask how plants can grow without soil, marveling at their quiet resilience. Children may stand beneath the cradles, fascinated by their floating shapes. And for you, they offer a daily reminder of simplicity, how little is needed for life to thrive. Tip: hang several cradles together, staggered at different heights. This creates rhythm, like notes in a song, each plant catching the light differently as the sun shifts. At dusk, string soft fairy lights nearby, and the cradles seem to glow, suspended between earth and sky. In the end, Driftwood air plant cradles are not just a display, but a meditation. They remind us that life can flourish in the smallest spaces, that beauty can be weightless, and that sometimes the most enchanting gardens are the ones that hang gently in the air. As our journey draws to a close, take a moment to breathe in the stillness that a garden so generously offers. Each pebble we placed, each piece of driftwood we shaped, and each simple idea we explored today was more than just design. It was a reminder that beauty is often found in what nature has already given us. Sometimes it is not about adding more, but about seeing differently, slowing down enough to notice the quiet wonders waiting just outside our doors. The projects we shared are not only about decoration. They are invitations to create with your hands, to listen with your heart, and to allow your garden, no matter how small, to become a sanctuary of calm. With every stone lifted, with every herb planted, you are not only crafting an object, you are shaping a story. And in time, those stories will weave themselves into your daily life, offering comfort, joy, and gentle inspiration. Here at TERAFLORA Studio, it has been an honor to guide you through these moments of discovery. We believe that creativity is not limited to grand gestures. It flourishes in the quiet corners, in the details, in the care you place into every small step. May these ideas inspire you to find beauty in simplicity and to celebrate the art of making with what is already around you. If you have found peace in this journey, and if these stories have brought you warmth and inspiration, I invite you to become part of our growing family. Subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio so that together we may continue exploring, imagining, and shaping spaces that nurture both nature and soul. Until we meet again, may your days be gentle and your garden always whisper calm.